My name is Orion Jenkins. I own and operate Jenkins Slate Masters Incorporated. Joe Jenkins is my dad. This is Dominic, Nave. I learned this technique from a guy named Raymond Kreck. He's a fourth generation master slater. The valley slates are half the width of the field slate, so you can use the same length slate, use the same slate. Ideally, the valley slates don't have holes though, they're unpunched. So right now we're using unpunched Glendyne slates. These are called North Country Black from the Glendyne quarry. And then these are the Penn slate. The concept of these valleys is that you have so much lap of these small slates in the valley that the water can't find its way through. If I hold one of these slates in place here, we don't quite have all the slates on, but you'll have 4 slates on top of it. So there's almost like a triple head lap. Like if I hold it on this slate here, you can kind of see that. This bottom slate. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 slates on top of it. So the water, if it's coming in at an extreme angle here, it'll run under this slate, and then it might even run under that slate. But by the time it gets to the center of the valley, it's starting to straighten out. And so all the water just washes out of the valley. It doesn't find its way past the slate. No, ice and water shield is not important here. The fourth generation master German roofer that showed me this technique, the only piece of metal he installs is a 24-inch by 24-inch flashing right at the bottom of the valley. This first course of slate, it just butts itself and is mitered right in the valley here. And you can see the flashing sticking out here. So if water somehow could get maybe under these first few slates at an extreme angle, like say if I push water this way, it would leak. So the flashing is probably important just for this very bottom portion. The hardest part of these valleys is starting them and getting on the valley board and then finishing them. Typically, you'd have a valley paired with another valley. This might be a ridge, and then this roof pitch would continue. So transitioning from 2 woven valleys back into the field slates can be difficult. Sometimes it's helpful to use lead flashing to weave it up, up under the field slates and on top of the valley slates. Some people were in here yesterday asking this question: how far down does the valley board come? And I drew a line right here. I'm pretty sure that's where it is. Yeah, so the valley board stops here. You install this first slate and the corners just line up with the drip edge of the roof. And then these second 2 slates, you actually kind of don't know where they sit until you line these 3 slates up with the second row. So you're just centering these 2. You're measuring this distance and dividing it in half to find where these 2 slates sit. But it's these 3 slates, these first 3 slates, that dictate where the valley board will sit. So if I lay a slate here, those first 3, that's the valley board comes down and touches these 3. And it has to be laid at the exact height of this center slate, this green one. So it can't be lower than it can't be higher than it. It needs to be the exact same height as this slate. So that's why you can see the back corners have been cut at an angle. I don't recommend using a 1x. I did that on the first 2 valleys I installed down in Pittsburgh, and I got about halfway up the valley and I felt the board crack. And there's really nothing I could do at that point. So yeah, you definitely want to use a 2x. These valley slates have to go in first, and then these slates will tie into it. And it's important to actually learn this really cool technique of cutting valley slates. Like this slate here, for example. Instead of laying the slate in here and having it sit up like this and trying to mark where you're going to cut it, there's a much more professional way to mark and cut these valley slates. You actually start with the back of the slate facing up, because that's the side of the slate you want to mark anyway. And we're looking for this distance here. So this part of the slate. So when I flip it over, everything's backwards. So you flip the slate over, you slide it into the valley where it meets this slate, and you're looking at where it meets this slate, and you're making a mark. So you're finding that distance by starting with the slate upside down, so it keeps the slate out of the valley. Now if I'm marking it this way, the slate's in the valley and it wants to rock, so you can't get an accurate mark. If I do it like this, I can get an accurate distance here, and then I just turn the slate so it's matching this angle, and then I slide it up or down until this mark hits the edge of this slate. And once I slide it down to that mark hits, say, which is about there, I'm marking it up here, where these two slates butt against each other. And then you're cutting off that excess there. And if you do that, it'll look just like the slate underneath it. One question people sometimes ask is what happens if the slate breaks in the valley? Well, we had 3 break in the valley, a couple valleys in Pittsburgh. And what we did was more or less kind of like what we do for some tile roofs. Make a copper flashing that, if you have a couple of holes in your tile, you have a copper flashing that you wire, and it comes down and it has a bend on the back here, so you can hook it kind of over the tile underneath it. We use that same principle for the slate in the valleys. We created a piece of copper that we could hook, we could wire onto the slate and hook onto the slate underneath it if we needed to slide a replacement up in place, because this next slate only comes up 4 inches. So if I strap a piece of copper on this and have it flanged down here, it'll sit on these slates. I think we used that technique, and even another one maybe where we had a long slate hook that we put on a strap of copper. So you can replace them if they need replaced. They're kind of a pain in the ass. We use 6-inch like cushions from sofas. We lay them in the valley, and that's what we sit on and kneel on and stuff. Penryn slates, which is my favorite slate in the world, and we didn't have a single slate break, and we still haven't, and that was 2019, I think. So it's been 6 years.
So you're going to bend something like this,
Yep.
and slide this up underneath. So it's basically going to look something like that.
Like this. So it'll hook onto the slate above it, and then you could attach a slate hook here that extends down and hooks around.
Or wire it.
Yeah.
Wire it with copper wire.
What size field slates are these? Are these 16/8?
These are 8 by 16. I've always done half the width because that's how I was taught, and I've only done 10 by 20s cut in half and 12 by 20s. Yeah, so 6s or 5s in the valley. Yeah. This is 4 because it's a small mock-up, and we thought it would look better. This pattern right here will continue the whole way up. So there'll be 3 connecting to each row of slate, and then there'll be this.
6.
And then 3. Yeah. I mean, these are like, you can see the top corner is actually cut off here. It comes down like this, and then normally you can kind of clip a little bit of this corner off too. So they're kind of a funky shaped little piece, and you can pre-cut all those. And those pieces actually, you want to sort out the thinnest slates you have and cut those pieces out of the thinnest slates, because these slates have to run over top of them. It's really important to take your time when you're doing something like this, because if you start installing slates that are fatter on the top and thinner on the bottom, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble, especially with the valley slates. You always want the thin side up top. Everything will lay a lot nicer. Yeah, these should be the thinnest slates out of all of them. These ones here, because you're running over top of them. Yeah, and you got to take your time. We actually wire all these slates in place. They have the nail holes. You run the wire through the nail hole, and then you run the wire up above the flashing to keep any
So
holes.
the bottom 6 are wired.
Yeah, they're wired, which doesn't matter. I mean, these ones don't have.
They're not going to move.
They don't have things on the side of them, but like this stuff's all locked in there. And these ones, if you wanted, you could put a dab of sealant underneath and just keep it from shifting around if you're worried about a bunch of snow and ice, barreling off the roof or something. But pretty much, yeah, the jacks will stop, out here. We don't want them in the valley. You can put a small board across, and your legs can actually fit underneath there. But yeah, we typically work with a thick pad.
Stay out of the valley with your weight.
Yep. Yeah, and just be careful. Yeah.
And now this is a valley slate here you're gonna put in, right?
Yep. This
And
is,
are they the same length as the field slates?
yep, they go in the same length. as the
Same
field
length as the
slates,
field slates, just half the width.
And there are 2 rows in the valley for each row.
For each row of field slates, there's 2 rows of valley slates.
So what you end up with is instead of lapping, instead of having a single head lap, you have a double head lap. The only metal that's required in the whole valley is we put a 24 by 24 inch square crease corner to corner to protect this very bottom area.
And that's underneath all the slates.
It is underneath all the slates, underneath the starter, the first course, and
Underneath even the starter. What about the cant?
the cant is built into our drip edge, and
Oh,
this
the
is
cant's
rests on
built.
top of the cant.
Oh, I see, you have a copper drip edge with a built-in cant. So that piece is on top of the cant.
Yes, indeed. And then on the bottom, when you're starting, you have 3 rows for the first row of the field. You start with 1, 2, 3, and then this first
3 slates.
row 3 starts the pattern going up the roof. It goes 3 to 6 to 3 to 6 to 3 to 6 the entire way up the valley. And each row of 3, the bottom of the row of 3 lines up to the bottom of the field course, and the row of 6 ducks up underneath. And these very outermost slates, they should be the thinnest slates out of the ones you have.
Okay, so how do you know what the exposure is when you're between the 3 and the 6?
The exposure of these is going to be half the distance from.
Okay. So you're using full slates on the outside and working your way in?
You run the 3s and the field more or less at the same time, so you can line them up. So that's just one line.
Oh, I see. All right, here's the finished mock-up.